I was 10 years old the summer the Crooked Man came back to Clay County. I didn't know that's who he was at first. To me, he was just a tall, funny man I'd seen out near the old coal shaft, the one everyone said was too dangerous to play around. But when you're 10 and bored, and stuck with your grandmother all summer while your parents try to work things out, danger doesn't sound like a warning. It sounds like an invitation. My grandmother lived just outside Manchester, on a quiet stretch of land that backed up to the woods. She was kind, but strict in a way that made her seem older than she really was. Her house smelled like coffee and mothballs, and she always wore her gray hair in the same tight bun, like she was trying to hold herself together. I liked it there mostly. She cooked everything from scratch and didn't mind if I stayed out past dark as long as I told her where I was going. But there was one rule she never bent. "You don't go near that old mine," she'd say. "Not even to look. You hear me, Caleb?" I heard her. I even meant to listen. But kids are stupid in the way they think rules are just other people's fears trying to trap them. And I was curious. That mine was only half a mile through the woods, hidden behind an old chain-link fence that had rusted into lace. I found it one afternoon while looking for arrowheads along the creek bed. The fence had a hole cut in it, big enough for a kid, and behind it was a black mouth in the hillside. The entrance collapsed in places, but still there. That's where I saw him. He stood just inside the shadow, long arms hanging like broken ropes, back bent like he'd never stood upright in his life. His legs were uneven, one foot twisted inward so badly that he limped sideways when he moved. But what stuck with me most was his face. It wasn't monstrous exactly, just wrong. Too long, chin pointed like a pickaxe, eyes that didn't blink. And he smiled at me. Not a creepy smile, not at first. Just this soft, slow grin like he'd been waiting for someone to talk to. I should have screamed, should have run. But he didn't do anything, just waved, real slow, then melted back into the dark. I told myself I'd imagined it. Probably some old drifter, maybe a miner left behind or a squatter. I didn't tell Grandma. I didn't want her to tighten the leash. But the next day I went back, and the next, and he was always there. Sometimes he stood farther back, sometimes closer. He never spoke, never crossed the broken threshold of the mine, just stood and watched and smiled like I was his only friend. And honestly, I started to feel something like that in return. I didn't have many friends in town. The kids at church thought I was weird. The way I talked, the books I read, the way I kept to myself. But the Crooked Man, he didn't care. He watched me like I mattered. Then the first kid went missing. His name was Frankie, a boy from school. He'd gone into the woods and didn't come back. They found his bike near the river, but nothing else. Search parties, dogs, helicopters, nothing. Grandma started locking the doors at night. She looked pale when she told me not to wander. "There's something in the trees," she said. "Don't you go testing your luck." I nodded, but I still snuck back to the mine. When I told the Crooked Man that a kid was gone, he tilted his head real slow, like he didn't understand. Then he pointed behind him, into the dark of the shaft. I peered in, and for the first time, I thought I saw movement back there. Something shifting. A sound, maybe. A faint knocking. I backed away. Another kid vanished the next week. A girl this time. Jessica. Same story. Playing near the woods. Gone before dinner. I couldn't shake the feeling that the Crooked Man knew. That he wanted me to know. I finally asked Grandma. I waited until after dinner, when she was washing dishes, her hands red from the water. I said, "Do you know anything about the mine? About something living in there?" She froze. The dish slipped from her hand into the sink and shattered. She turned around, pale as paper. "Who told you that name?" "I didn't say a name," I said. "But you know, don't you?" She sat down and told me the story. Back when she was a girl, maybe 7 or 8, there was a man who worked the mines. Small, mean man named Wilbur Crow. Worked nights mostly. There was a collapse once, real bad. Sealed off one of the newer shafts. 4 kids had snuck in there that day. No one could find them. People say Wilbur saw them go in and did nothing. Could have helped. Could have shouted. But he hated children. Said they were loud and nosy and in the way. Said one had thrown rocks at him once. So when the shaft gave way, he just watched. Let it happen. No one could prove it. But folks talked. He got run out eventually. Disappeared. Then the sighting started. Tall figure, crooked back, long limbs, always near the shaft. Kids claimed they heard whispering from the mine, like someone calling them by name. And a few times, kids vanished. That's why they shut the mine for good, sealed it. But the land was never cleaned up, and the stories never really went away. He's not a man anymore, she said. He's the guilt of that mine, all twisted up in the dark, and he wants more. That night, I couldn't sleep. I thought about the way he looked at me, like he was waiting, like I was part of something. I stopped going back, but then he came to me, not in my room, not in the yard, in my dreams. I saw myself walking through the woods, barefoot, eyes glazed. I saw the mine opening up like a hungry mouth. I heard knocking, rhythmic like a signal, and beneath it, voices, children, whispering my name, Caleb. I woke up screaming. Grandma came in, held me tight. "You have to be strong," she whispered. "You have to end it, before he chooses you." I didn't understand what she meant, not fully, but I think part of me knew what I had to do. The next day I packed my dad's old flashlight, a bag of coal from the shed, and a small hammer. I waited until late afternoon when Grandma was napping. Then I went to the mine. He was there, closer than before, almost at the entrance now. I stepped forward and said, "You want me, right?" He nodded. I said, "Then come get me." And I ran inside. The shaft wasn't deep, but it was enough. I dodged broken beams, slid down a loose incline, and reached the old chamber. It stank of rot and mold and something sweeter, like sap or syrup. The flashlight flickered, but I kept going. Behind me, I heard him, crawling, not walking. His limbs scraped the stone. He moaned like something hungry and sad all at once. I found the spot I was looking for, a narrow pinch in the tunnel, just before a wall of fallen rock. I ducked through it, turned, and waited. He came in slow, limbs folding and unfolding like an insect, eyes gleaming. I held up the bag. "I brought you what you wanted," I said. "Coal, for your grave." Then I tossed the bag past him, farther into the tunnel. And while he turned to look, I swung the hammer. The old timber holding up the pinch gave way. Rocks fell, dust exploded. The shaft groaned. I ran. The mine screamed. Not the rocks, the mine. It shrieked like something alive. The entrance caved behind me in a roar of stone and choking dust. I collapsed outside, coughing, ears ringing. When the noise stopped, the woods were still. He was gone. The town never found out exactly what happened. Some thought another collapse happened naturally. Others suspected I'd been near there, but Grandma covered for me. She told folks I'd stayed close, that I'd had the flu. But what mattered was this: no more kids went missing. A few months later, the town held a vote. Whether to clear the site and try to salvage the mine or seal it forever. They paved it over, turned it into a gravel lot no one ever used. I'm older now, married, got kids of my own. But sometimes, when the house is quiet and the dark seems too still, I remember that smile, that crooked smile, stretching across a face too long and too patient, and I wonder if maybe he's just waiting for a crack big enough to crawl through again. Story number 2. I still remember the day I first met Annie like it was yesterday, though it's been years now. I was working as a social worker in Sugar Grove, Virginia, and that case came in just before the end of the year, 1989. A collapsed shack somewhere deep in the woods had been found by some hunters, and inside they discovered this little girl, no older than 8, sitting silently in the rubble. She didn't say a word, just sat there, eyes wide but utterly silent. No name at first, no family, just Annie, as the officers called her, after the initials on a torn piece of cloth near her. I was assigned to take her in temporarily, and honestly, I wasn't prepared for what came next. At first I thought she was just traumatized. Kids like her often are. But the silence she carried wasn't like other cases I'd seen. She never spoke, never made a sound, never even tried. 2. She wouldn't write or draw either, though I kept journals and crayons around her. The house she came to live in was quiet, but strange things began to happen almost immediately. The first odd thing I noticed was the birds. Dead birds. They started appearing on the windowsill. Small sparrows and wrens, always neatly placed, never smashed or torn, just Lifeless. I didn't know where they came from. I didn't hear the flapping of wings or any noise that would suggest they flew into the window. I asked myself if maybe some animal was dropping them off, but there was no sign of that either. I tried to tell myself it was just a coincidence at first, but when it kept happening, day after day, I couldn't ignore it. Then there were the journals. I kept a record of everything, hoping Annie might respond somehow. One day, I found the journals completely blacked out, every single page covered in thick black ink. I swear I locked the room. I know I did. It was the same thing every time I checked. At first, I thought maybe I was imagining it or mixing up the dates, but then other people who came into the house saw it too. It wasn't just my eyes playing tricks on me. I was getting more and more unnerved. But what really shook me was when I called in Father Milligan. He was a priest who worked with troubled kids in the area and had a deep knowledge of local history and folklore. I thought maybe some spiritual guidance might help Annie, or at least me. He came over one afternoon, took one look at her, and then looked at me with a grave expression I'd never seen before. "This child," he said quietly, "she's tied to something older than any of us, something the mountains have kept hidden for generations." He told me about a cult from decades ago that worshipped Appalachian mountain spirits, ancient forces the locals feared and tried to keep sealed away. The cult was said to have involved children, silent ones, who were believed to carry messages or curses from those spirits. Annie fit the description exactly, he said. I didn't want to believe it. I'm a woman of reason, not superstition. But the more I tried to reach Annie, the more isolated and strange things became. I felt like I was watching a slow unraveling, like the house itself was falling apart around us, and Annie was the cause. She never spoke, never looked me in the eye. Instead, she just stared, quiet and still, as if waiting for something no one else could see. I tried everything: therapy, patience, gentle coaxing. But it was like she was locked inside a silence I couldn't break. 2 days before I made the hardest decision of my life, I found Annie sitting on the porch with a handful of feathers, black feathers, lining the steps. I knelt beside her, careful not to startle her. She didn't react or even blink, just stared at the feathers and then looked up at the sky, her eyes empty but intense. That's when I knew. I had to let her go. I returned Annie to state custody, hoping they'd find a better place for her, someone with more experience handling cases like hers. I felt like I was giving up, but I couldn't keep fighting a battle I didn't understand. 2 days later, the phone call came. The foster home where Annie had been placed caught fire. Flames consumed the place so fast there was no time to save anything. But Annie survived. She was found sitting outside, untouched by the smoke or the fire, silent as ever, staring at the burning wreckage with that same empty, knowing look. That image haunts me to this day. The fire destroyed the home, the life it could have been, and left me wondering what kind of child Annie really was. Was she cursed? Protected? I don't know. All I know is that silence, her silence, was louder than any scream I ever heard. It told a story I couldn't read and maybe never will. I've told this story to only a few people. Most think I'm exaggerating or lost it a little. But I swear on everything I've seen and felt, Annie was something not from this world, something tied to shadows deeper than the mountains around Sugar Grove. And the silence she carries? It's a warning. A presence I pray I never have to face again. Story number 3. They say the woods don't hold memories, but I know better. I've guided more than 100 hikes through the Chimney Rock area, and most of them are the same. Laughter, tired feet, granola bars, and Instagram shots of sunlit trees. But that trip in the spring of '97, that one changed everything. It's the only time I ever truly lost sleep out there, and it's the last time I ever set foot in that part of the forest. I'd been working as a wilderness guide for a few years by then. It was the kind of job that made sense for me, a balance of solitude and purpose. I didn't have to explain myself to trees, didn't have to worry about stares or judgment from the creeks or the rocks. Nature never gave a damn about what you looked like or what name you were born with. Out there, I was just Paul. That was enough. That April, I got booked for a 3-day backcountry excursion. Private group, 3 clients, a couple from Charlotte, Samantha and Greg, and their friend Elise, who'd flown in from Portland. They wanted a real experience, not just trails and overlooks, but off-grid, Campfire meals, no cell signal, unplugged vibes. So I picked the cabin. Now this place wasn't on most maps. It had no official name. We called it the Hunter's Cabin, though I don't think it had been used for hunting in decades. Just one of those holdovers from the 40s. Wooden walls, stone foundation, a roof that somehow hadn't caved in despite decades of weather. It sat about 10 miles off the nearest service road, surrounded by dense forest and sloping ridgelines. Isolated but stable. I'd stayed there a few times on my own. It always gave me a weird feeling, but nothing I could ever put a finger on. Just a sense like you weren't alone. Not quite. We reached it on the first day, just before sunset. The hike was smooth, and the group was in good spirits. I showed them how to get the fireplace going, where to collect water, and gave the usual safety rundown. The only unusual thing was the attic hatch. When I pulled the cord to check it out, this cloud of dust came down like it hadn't been disturbed in years. Didn't think much of it. Old buildings breathe funny. That night, the storm rolled in. It hit harder than expected. Heavy rain, sudden winds, one of those mountain tantrums that sneaks up fast and lingers. We were stuck. I told them we'd stay put and wait it out. The cabin could take it, and we had enough food to last. Spirits dipped a bit, but Elise pulled out a deck of cards, and soon enough, we were killing time with poker and peanut butter crackers. It was the second night when Elise decided to explore the attic. She asked if it was safe. I said probably, but to watch for loose boards. She climbed up with a flashlight while the rest of us sat downstairs. After a few minutes, we heard her call down. "There's a box of tapes up here, VHS, a whole stack of them," Greg shouted. "Back wall, what, like home movies?" "Looks like it," she said. "Want me to bring them?" We didn't have a TV, obviously, but something about it piqued my interest. Old tapes abandoned in an attic? I climbed up after her. She was crouched near a crate pushed into a corner. The tapes were dusty, unlabeled except for one, written in marker, "Help us." I don't know what possessed me, but I told her to bring it down. All of them, actually. Maybe I was just trying to keep the group entertained. Maybe I was curious. Or maybe it was something else, something heavier, pushing down on me. Either way, by nightfall, the tapes were stacked on the cabin floor. We didn't have a way to play them, so we just speculated. Old family vacations? Maybe a hunter's log? But that first tape, the one that said "Help us," Elise held it in her lap the rest of the evening like it was a puzzle she was trying to solve without opening the box. On the third day, the rain still hadn't let up, but we found a portable generator and an old TV VCR combo in a storage shed out back. I hadn't remembered it being there before, but I figured maybe a previous ranger left it. We got it working with some coaxing, and of course someone had to say it. "Let's watch one." I regret that more than anything. We started with the labeled tape. The static took a while to clear, but when it did, we saw a man, early 30s, maybe, standing in the same cabin right where we were. His voice was shaking. "If anyone finds this, please, we're trapped. Something out there keeps watching. We can't leave. I think it's inside the woods. Or, no, I think it is the woods." The image cut, and when it returned, the man was gone. Just the same cabin, empty. Then a woman appeared. Different tape, different time. She was crying, holding up a Polaroid. "They were right behind me," she whispered. "And then they weren't. Please, I don't know how to get out." The footage ended. We sat there in silence. Elise reached for another tape. "Let's see more," she said. I stopped her, told her enough was enough. I felt this pressure in my chest, like the air was too dense. The others didn't argue, not much, but none of us slept well that night. The storm finally broke on, the morning of day 4. I didn't give anyone time to discuss it. I packed up, told them we were leaving, and led them down the trail. No one argued. Even Greg, who had been skeptical the whole time, kept glancing over his shoulder as we walked. We made it back safely. Once we were near town, I told them to keep quiet about what we'd seen. Not for secrecy's sake, but because I didn't think anyone would believe us. They agreed. I went back to the cabin 2 weeks later. Alone. I don't know why. Part of me thought maybe I'd imagined it all. Maybe the isolation, the storm, the flickering VHS static. It had messed with us. I wanted proof. Or closure. Or maybe I just wanted to make sure no one else would find those tapes. The cabin was just as we'd left it. I climbed up to the attic, expecting the crate to be empty, but it wasn't. There were new tapes, labeled this time with dates. The most recent was just 4 days old. My hands shook as I slid it into the machine. It started with static again. Then the screen cleared. It was me, standing outside the cabin. Same jacket, same pack, same haircut. Watching the windows. Silent. Motionless. The camera was positioned from inside, like someone had been filming through a crack in the boards. I watched myself shift my weight, turn, walk around the side of the cabin. The footage followed. Then, it cut. The next clip showed the same angle, inside the cabin. But now I was at the window staring in. And my eyes looked wrong. Not angry, not scared, just hollow. I watched every second. At the end, the camera tilted as if being picked up, and I heard a voice. Mine, again. Whisper, "Don't come back." I burned every tape, took them all outside, doused them with lighter fluid, and set them on fire. The flames caught fast. Black smoke rolled into the trees. I expected something. Maybe a scream from the woods, maybe silence so deep it'd crush me. But nothing happened, until I stepped back inside. The cabin was wrong. Just wrong. It smelled like rot. The walls looked warped, like they'd been waiting for me. The air was thick, but not humid. More like grief, if that makes sense. Like the place knew I was there to end it, so I did. I tore down the curtains, smashed the old chair, pulled every dry board I could find and piled them in the center of the room. I lit the match, let it catch, and didn't look back until the flames were higher than the door frame. It burned slow, reluctant, like the cabin didn't want to go, but it did. Eventually, I stayed until the last beam collapsed. Haven't been back since. I still guide tours, but not in Chimney Rock, not anywhere near it. And when clients ask about remote cabins or hidden trails, I steer them somewhere safe, somewhere boring, somewhere the trees don't remember your name. Because some places don't forget, and some things keep watching long after you've gone. Story number 4. I was just passing through Virginia, hauling a load of dry goods from Memphis to Roanoke, when I decided to stop in Bluefield. I'd never heard of it before. The truck's AC had been acting up all day, and I'd sweated through half my shirt. I figured I'd grab a hot meal and a shower, sleep 6 hours, and hit the road before sunrise. That was the plan. There was this old roadside motel called the Pine Bluff Inn. Yellow sign, flickering letters. It looked like the kind of place where the vending machines might still sell RC Cola. I parked the rig around the side and walked into the front office. The woman behind the desk looked like she'd been up since the Carter administration. Her name tag said Tanya. She had this tired, kind face, and she was wearing an oversized hoodie with a bleach stain near the collar. "You driving through or laying over?" she asked. "Just overnight," I said. "Room with a shower and a bed's all I need." She gave me room 4, slid the key across the counter like it was made of something heavier than plastic. Her hand lingered a second too long. "If anything's off," she said slowly, "just come let me know." I nodded, thanked her, and went to the room. It wasn't bad, really. Clean enough. Dim lighting, sure, and the carpet had that squish you don't ask questions about. But the water pressure was decent, and the bed didn't creak. I fell asleep around 10, maybe 10:30. I remember because I glanced at the clock before turning in. It was one of those fake wood grain digitals that hum just loud enough to notice when you're trying to sleep. I woke up at 2:58 a.m., no reason, no sound, just wide awake. I thought maybe it was the truck's vibrations still in my bones. Happens sometimes after long hauls. I sat up, rubbed my face, and decided to get a glass of water. When I turned the faucet on, the water came out red. At first I thought it was rust, old pipes maybe, but this wasn't rust. This was thick, viscous. It had a smell, not metallic exactly, but more like old pennies and something sour. I leaned in close, turned the tap off, then on again. Same thing. A few seconds of silence, then a slow dark ooze that painted the white porcelain crimson. I took a step back. My hands were shaking. I don't scare easy. I've driven through tornadoes, past burning wrecks, Once even skirted a protest in Arizona that turned into a riot. But that sink did something to me. There was no noise, no warning, just the steady presence of something that shouldn't be. Knocked on Tanya's door. She came out wearing the same hoodie, now zipped to the neck. "Room 4, I said. "The sink. It's bleeding." Her face didn't change. Not really. But her eyes? They went dark. She looked down, sighed. "It's 3 o'clock, she said quietly. I nodded. "So you know?" "Started last year," she said. "After a man guest died in room 6. Violently. Police said it was self-inflicted, but no one really believed that." I glanced over my shoulder. Room 6 was 2 doors down. "Why didn't you tell me?" "Because it doesn't happen in every room," she said. "Just sometimes it skips. I thought maybe it was done. You were in 4. It never happened in 4 before." I didn't like that answer. "What kind of death?" She hesitated. "He cut his own throat. In the bathroom." No, just did it." The woman in room 5 heard the gurgling. When the manager at the time found him, there was blood in the sink, full to the rim, not from the cut. The sink was already full when they broke in. That's what the report said. I wanted to leave right then, but I also wanted to know what the hell was going on. I'm a rational man, a practical man, but this didn't feel like plumbing, so I stayed. The next night, I set up my phone on the little counter ledge next to the sink. I hit record and went to bed. I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling, counting every shadow that moved, every tick of that damn digital clock. And at exactly 3 a.m., the faucet turned on by itself. I didn't imagine it. I saw it. The knob didn't move, but the water oozed, out in a slow stream of red, like someone had wrung out a sponge soaked in blood. It didn't splash. It just filled the basin with thick, slow liquid. My hands were cold. I felt like I was underwater, barely breathing. Then I saw something I didn't expect. In the mirror, above the sink, I saw a flash, a shape, like someone standing behind me for a second, then gone. I spun around, but the room was empty. I turned back, and the sink was dry, completely dry, not a trace, like it never happened. But the phone was still recording. When I watched the footage the next morning, it showed everything, every drop, and more. In the video, the reflection didn't just show a shape, it showed a man, standing behind me, pale, shirtless, blood pouring from his neck, down his chest. Took that footage and went to Tanya. I expected her to scream, deny it, something, but she watched it all the way through, mouth shut. Then she looked at me and said, "Now you've seen him." "Who is he?" I asked. "No one knows. Checked in under a fake name. No ID, no family, nothing. Paid cash. 3 nights. Killed himself the second night. Why is this still happening?" She looked out the window like she was watching for something. Some people don't leave. Not because they can't, because they won't. I left Bluefield the next morning. Didn't even shower. Just tossed my bag in the cab and drove, caffeine pills and Red Bull in my lap. But the story stuck with me. A few weeks later, I uploaded the video. Just raw footage, no commentary. I figured a few hundred views at most. Maybe a couple of horror junkies would bite. It blew up. Millions of views. Overnight. Comments from people saying they'd seen the same thing. Others called it fake, but the ones who believed, they believed hard. Someone even tracked down a copy of the police report from 2008. Room 6. Death ruled self-inflicted, but the officer's notes had one weird line. Sink was full prior to bleeding out, unsure origin of fluid. The motel shut down 3 months later. The health department came in, claimed the plumbing was contaminated, mold, or some nonsense like that. But I knew. Tanya emailed me once, short and simple. They closed it. Finally. Thank you. Last I heard, the building was repurposed as a kind of local memorial. Flowers in the parking lot, plaque near room 6. People visit, take photos, try to summon whatever was there. But me? I don't stop in Bluefield anymore. Not even for gas. I reroute around it, take the long way, add hours to my trip if I have to, because sometimes when I close my eyes I still see that mirror, still feel the cold air behind me, still hear the water drip, even when I'm nowhere near a sink. And I know, deep down, that if I go back, he'll be waiting. just behind the glass.